Hi there, welcome back to Switzer. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Nadine Blaney, just filling in for Peter this evening. After years of taking a back seat to more glitzy and lucrative investments, the humble term deposit has returned to favour. The GFC has seen many investors look at where they can park their money, where they can see it, in a bank account. Well, for more on this developing trend, I'm joined by Steve Mickenbecker. He's the head of research at Canex. Steve, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Hi, Nadine. Pleasure.
So in fashion, one day you're in, the next day you're out. Term deposits, it's not quite that quick, but we have seen a lot of waxing and waning of interest in deposits.
Yeah, we have. Look, I think there are a few things that have happened here. The GFC has been a huge impact, and your last speaker spoke about that as well. But what's happened with the GFC and term deposits, a couple of things. On the supply side, banks and credit unions have had a lot of difficulty accessing wholesale markets. So that's really meant they've had to compete really very hard for the retail dollar, the retail deposit dollar. And that's one thing. The second thing is that that really, with rising interest rates that we've seen over the last couple of years, banks are saying, look, rates will be higher in 12 or 18 months' time than they are today, so they're prepared to actually pay a higher rate on TDs than they are on maybe at-call deposits. So really, the term deposit becomes a lot more favourable relative to other revenue streams. Now, there's one last thing, and of course, on the demand side, consumers are saying, boy, we're a little bit worried about the stock market. What do we do with our money? And there has been a flight to cash. So, cash has actually flowed into the system. So all of that's meant term deposits are back.
Good. So risk adverse or quite safe. And then we've got the interest rates that are pretty competitive.
Yes.
So it looks like lots of people are looking at term deposits. Now, Canex is a researcher that compares and rates products. And you've looked at 89 term deposit products and sort of compared them to see how they compare. So what criteria did Canex use?
Look, with term deposits, rate matters. Rate matters most, of course, and we've looked at 6 different rates and two different amounts. So that's a lot of term deposit quotes over 87 providers. But that's not all there is. That there's an element of the score that's also gone into certain features and things like are the terms available that you want? Can you get your term deposit on if you've only got a couple of $1,000s? How do you access your money? Is it easy to get in and out of the account? Will it cost you money if you decide to move it from one provider to another provider? So all of those features of the product actually come into play as well. So we've looked at 30 different features that might otherwise not be directly price related. Look, another one is actually how often is interest paid. That matters a lot. So all of those things also go into it. You shouldn't just look at the price. The price is paramount, but make sure that the deposit actually suits you too.
The thinking of all the research that you've had to do for such broad-based criteria just boggles my mind. It must have been pages and pages and books and days.
Yeah, look, we do this. This is what we do.
This is what you do. Well, I'm glad you do so that we don't. So let's talk through then some of the findings. So, which bank or financial institution really came on top when it came
well,
to term
we've got
deposits?
two. We've got two. Suncorp was the bank that came out on top, and CUA, the credit union that came out on top for the customers that really like banking with a non-bank. So two very strong performers. And, to do well in this award, you've consistently got to really meet those interest rate, be competitive at all those levels of interest rate and over a period of 6 months. So it's not just sort of today we're the best. It's over, the last 6 months we've been very competitive with our rates.
Okay.
So all of that matters. But plus there's more to it than that. I mean, Suncorp has an options account that online enables you to actually lock in some of your money on term deposit. You can take your interest monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, annually. All of that comes into play. CUA also has lots of flexibility in the way you can actually use your term deposit. So, things like they have monthly or annual interest. For shorter terms, you can pull the money out if need be. So all of those things come into play as well.
So Suncorp, CUA, but generally speaking, we're sort of the big four, we're the big names. Relatively similar when it came?
Well, it was interesting and probably not unexpected. The big names are they're up there competing, Now, are they there with the very best rate? Well, maybe not, because the big names can still access money through other sources. You know, they're not quite as locked out of some of the wholesale markets as the smaller names. So I think maybe the smaller names have really come into play here because they really need that retail dollar.
And the competitiveness driving the market.
Exactly.
Okay, now you've also compared term deposits with online savings accounts. What's the biggest difference between the two of those?
Yeah, okay. Now, clearly the biggest difference is that with online savings accounts, you can get your money back here and now.
Yeah.
And that's a great benefit if you're not sure that you can lock your money in. Now, you'd lock your money into a term deposit based on a couple of things. One is your uncertainty about the rate that you're going to get.
Let's bring up some of the pros. I think we do have a chart that we can bring up just while we talk through this. So the pros of having a term deposit would be the interest rate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason you lock your money in, that you believe you can get a better rate today, locking in for 12 months or 2 years, than leaving your money on at call. So you get that certainty of rate and hopefully you're getting a better rate. So that's really the main reason you go into a term deposit. And the con of that is, well, one, it's locked in, so make sure that actually you can lock your money in. If you want it back, chances are there'll be a penalty. It may even not be available. And the second thing is that if rates move the wrong way, let's say you expected rates to go up 0.5%, they ended up going up 3%, well, really, you've locked yourself out of a better return. So that's the con, that's the other side of the coin.
And when we come to savings accounts, I guess when we talk about the 3 term deposit traps, so early exit costs. So if you go into a term deposit, then you could actually get stuck if you do want to withdraw your money.
Exactly. Look, none of us can perfectly predict our futures, and things can change, things can happen, you might want your money back. So yes, you can actually find yourself paying a penalty, and it can be a very significant element of the interest that you expected to get. Now, the reasons are that, well, you know, the banks have actually committed, they've raised term deposits to fund loans.
They need the money.
Well, yeah, exactly. They need the money, and they've also locked in certain loans at rates that match up their term deposits. So, you know, there are penalties in most cases if you withdraw early.
Can you always opt to pay out the cost and get out, or sometimes can you just be refused?
Yeah, you can technically be refused. Now, it would be unusual, and I don't think the Australian banks and credit unions would have normally applied that, but technically it can be, because you're entering into a contract that says, I am putting my money in here for 3 years, and that's the contract. Now, it's unlikely, and it would be, I think, a pretty dire situation.
Okay, now deposit accounts. Can you think offhand, I guess one of the 3 term deposit traps is that you might have to open a deposit account when you get this term deposit. Why would banks be forcing you to do that? Yeah,
well, look, I think it's just an administrative thing. You know, they tie identification, they tie customer records, they tie maturity and what they do with the money at maturity to that transaction account. So some of them actually do require you to open another account. Now, that's not a big deal necessarily. It can be a pain having an extra account you don't particularly want, but make sure there are no fees on the account. You know, if you end up paying away $5 a month in fees on that account, well, you might have sucked up a fair bit of your interest on your term deposit, and you don't really want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So you would really have to just balance it all out again to see how it would eat into the interest rate.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, another perhaps trap for these term deposits is automatic renewal, because you might put your money into one of those, assume that it's going to roll over and be also at the same rate of interest, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, the answer is don't do it.
Okay.
What you do with automatic renewal is say, I don't want to automatically renew. At maturity, I make my own decisions, and consumers should always go and look at the rate they're getting, look at the deal they're getting, and compare at maturity, because it's a heck of a trap to just roll it over. You might actually find yourself in a pretty ordinary term at a pretty ordinary rate. Okay, so you've done all the hard work for us. What's the website if people would like to go and sort of compare these products? Yes, it's www.canstar.com.au. Okay, Philip, or Steve, totally appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Nadine.